Welcome to my basement, everybody. It is good to see you all. It's been a little while since I've been live, and I couldn't think of three nicer gentlemen to join me on Vic's Basement today. Jose Sanchez and Shaun Hatton, you know, from the EP family. It's good to see you guys. It's always fantastic to see your faces. And Jose just showed us his pregnant wife, Melissa.
Yeah,
You've got a baby coming. And how long? How long until the baby's here?
8 weeks.
8 weeks. Oh my God, Jose's a dad. It's incredible. And,
no.
Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica is here. How you doing, sir? Good to see you.
You know, I'm as a citizen of these United States, I am happy to be exploring and shouting that loudly for many reasons, and we can save that for the back end of the show. Just wanted to shout out, you know, I got a little USA feeling at the moment.
Very big week for the United States, so congratulations on some very good positive changes happening. We've got a bunch of people in the chat today. It's good to see Wilden and Alpha Cat. Wilden was the first one in with a howdy. Good to see you. Alpha Cat is here. Hi there is here. Mr. Mass Produce. Rathless. Rathless always has the nicest comments. You're such a cool person, buddy. Thank you. Ben Gordon is here. Good to see you, Ben. Blair
I saw
Farrell.
Shaun Hatton right there.
Shaun Hatton is right there. Yes. Or do you guys have the stream up? It's so Brady Bunch, isn't it? It's amazing. And Kashimoto is here. Adam Leonhardt, who sent me something very nice today. Thank you, sir. Very, very cool from Megadad. So we've got an incredible community. If you're new to the channel, make sure you start chatting with everybody because these people are not only very good looking, but they're very nice and they're very smart and knowledgeable and passionate about this this hobby, lifestyle, passion. What do we call video games, guys?
When are you going to describe me, though? I'm waiting for that. This doesn't. I'm not. It's not clicking.
Didn't I say Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica?
You were talking all those other adjectives. I was like, what?
Oh.
Who? Where? What?
Oh yes.
But video games, yes. I'm down.
Yes.
I'm down with the VGs. Yes.
Sam Machkovech, also one of the smartest gentlemen I know, and always a pleasure to have on the podcast with me. And today, I wanted to do something a little bit different. It's not so structured. I don't have little clips and segments and things to run, which you guys were all a part of a bunch of those vids recently, and those are super fun to do, and I'll do them again. But today, I haven't really had the chance to kind of, mostly because there's been very little in-person, well, there's been none. No in-person sort of get-togethers and sort of, hypothesizing about what is going on with the state of Nintendo. And I thought, let's focus a chunk of our time today, our conversation today, about the next Nintendo blank. You know, is it going to be a Nintendo Switch or is it going to be something else? Does Nintendo even need to do that? Sam, I'm going to kick it to you because I know that... You've probably been writing some articles on this already.
I mean, I love talking about the Nintendo Series S or Nintendo Series. Let's go Nintendo Series W, and then people can decide whether that's Wario or Waluigi, because we know Nintendo fans love that kind of heat. We have all been expecting, assuming, or just optimistically hoping for another Nintendo Switch revision for many reasons, one of which being the Nintendo Switch as a portable home hybrid has always been based on this very old Tegra X1 chip from NVIDIA. Now, we're talking, this was dated back when it was announced. I recall Digital Foundry, which is a Eurogamer subsidiary obsessed with these technical details, thought we might be getting a fancier, nicer NVIDIA chip inside of the Switch before it was actually formally announced, and we wound up getting an older one back then. So every single process you can imagine is coming down in die size, is coming down just in price, just to go for something smaller. So just logically, when we think about what it means to make a new motherboard revision or hardware revision for something like Nintendo Switch, it makes sense for Nintendo to push something forward that adds power without costing them more, because once you're moving into new processes, you're essentially just bulk ordering parts anyway. So it makes sense for something like a Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo Switch HD, Nintendo Switch 4K to come along, primarily because NVIDIA continues to partner with Nintendo. We don't see signs of that happening otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's safe to assume it's going to be more powerful. But the question is when and how, and also how much has the pandemic shaken up whatever plan they might have had. Maybe we would have already seen one announced by now, but as soon as you have one part go awry, they all go awry. I mean, you can, just as an example, you take something like the Valve Index, and there was an interview with Gabe Newell, who head over at Valve, who talked about how the Valve Index got completely lambasted in terms of production because of one chip from one facility that came out of a little place in China known as Wuhan.
Yeah.
And so they were just completely floored and flummoxed because they had pointed to Microsoft and other vendors placing bulk orders of the remaining stock or remaining alternate warehouses. So you end up not knowing exactly what Nintendo's supply chain is, which is spread out over a ton of countries. If a single one got completely rattled by a pandemic closure or any sort of other warehouse issue that we haven't heard about, we don't know. So that is like the beginning of the question is, okay, they're going to make something that's smaller and more powerful, but when and what's stopping us from hearing about it today?
2020 does feel like that would have been a good time for Nintendo to release something like that, because they had a good year, but they didn't have like a blast of new games kind of year, you know? And it felt like there could have been some kind of new something in the last quarter. And now it really does feel like there's room for one big huge surprise. Yeah. Shaun, you play a lot of Switch games, and I know that you're focused on sometimes quirkier titles or more independent sort of minded games. In your estimation, does Nintendo even need to do this right now?
I don't think they need to do it right now, but I would like them to announce something. The Switch is one of my favorite systems of all time.
Yes.
But it's not because of how powerful it is. I think it's more because it's convenient, right? And in days when we were able to go places, it was nice to have the Switch on me.
Yeah.
It was my travel companion for a lot of road trips and a lot of, it was always there for me. Like I could always depend on just relaxing after a long day of shooting, just sitting back and playing some Switch games. And it was like having a console. I could play like older fighting games or whatever, and it was like a comfort food kind of thing.
Right.
But as far as the power of the Switch, like I was just talking to you guys before we went live, like I would like a Mortal Kombat that doesn't look like someone smeared Vaseline on the screen. Like it obviously shows its power limitations in these titles that are also available on the other platforms. And it would be nice if it didn't have that downside, right? Like no one's playing the Switch right now because it's got amazing graphics. Like they're playing it for the titles and library, etc.
But Mortal Kombat's an interesting point, just to say real quick, that's one of the games that we've seen people with jailbroken first generation Switches soup up a little bit. There's just enough kind of stuff in those games that's baked in where you could ramp up either the frame rate or the resolution in terms of dynamic stuff. So like there's little seeds in place for that dream of muddy looking Mortal Kombat 11 to be less muddy with minimal effort on the developer's part. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But like you could see those seeds. Like Witcher 3 in particular scales incredibly when you overclock your Switch by using jailbroken tools.
Yeah, and that was an incredible port as well. I mean, even the base port on base hardware, it was still remarkable that they achieved that. But there's something about the way that Nintendo does all of their stuff. Like, you never think about the visuals in their games. Jose, I mean, what do you think it is with the way that Nintendo approaches development? Do they say, let's target graphics that we can achieve rather than, try to go crazy with ambition there?
I feel like Nintendo especially is gameplay. That's all. Yeah. It's always been Nintendo's thing. Let's focus on the gameplay. We don't care how it looks. I mean, it was the same thing when they went from the Wii to the Wii U. Everybody was like, we're getting all these super high definition consoles coming out and everything's going to that next step. Nintendo's like, we're going to go with the Wii U.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit better than the Wii's graphical capabilities, but the gameplay is going to be what you're in it for. So that's what I think their main focus is. Just going into whatever they do with the Pro Switch or the Switch Pro or whatever the hell it's going to be.
Yeah.
I think they, I would hope, like in my head, they're looking at, okay, it's got to be 4K on the handheld as well as the scaling up to your bigger TV. And that's what a lot of people
think it should be 4K on the handheld?
I think so. I mean, it's not going to happen, but I mean, like, if you look at your iPhone, my iPhone screen is 4K and it's this big.
Yeah. But the price is just so prohibitive, though.
Well,
Exactly.
It's interesting you mention an iPhone screen being a high resolution, because when we look at smartphones of the past year, the trend has not only been more pixels, but higher refresh rates.
Yeah.
Now you've got your average phone blogger is talking about 90 hertz, 120 hertz. That screen tech is moving up. And I don't see Nintendo doing either that or doing necessarily many more pixels for portable, because we think about anniversaries like the original Game Boy, and we think about the reason the Game Boy exploded in ways that every other portable didn't, which was battery. Battery life really matters to Nintendo, which is part of why the Switch is so downclocked in portable mode.
Yeah, I haven't charged my Game Boy, and I'm sure it's got power.
It always
go
does.
grab my Game Boy Advance, and it would still.
It always does.
And that really is going to matter with whatever revision we get. And that was like why the last Switch revision, which broke the jailbreak, was also about it's a little more power efficient. You are going to get a longer battery life. You should upgrade to your formerly piratable Switch. Get rid of it. Get the one with better battery. And I was tempted. I was tempted to buy a whole nother Switch just to get even more juice, because that is useful. So that will always be part of that conversation, which is why I don't see 4K being part. But Vic, if you don't mind me jumping ahead to a buzzword that really, really gets me excited. Yeah. Now, I don't know that this is going to be the case, but 4 letters, DLSS. When I think about NVIDIA, I think about DLSS, deep learning super sampling, which is
like they made it for Nintendo, right? It just feels like it's perfect for this.
It's a tentpole for their whole giant overpriced RTX line of graphics cards. Yeah. But it's also the kind of thing that you could put into a dock, not into the portable system, but a dock. And you take a mildly powered 1080p ready portable system, which would be better than 720p. Stick that in the dock, and all of a sudden you've got TAA that magically gets up to pretty close to 4K quality with very little hit, because it's just about the extra cores on that chip. If they can do that, if they can take the motherboard on the Switch itself and then add another motherboard in the dock, that would be incredible. We've yet to see NVIDIA ever reveal something of the sort, but they are bullish on DLSS, because the more games that use it, the more money they make, because that's an exclusive license. And then that's the more people looped into the NVIDIA graphics cards, and then that's better for them on PC, because AMD is doing a whole different thing with Xbox and PlayStation. So that's a big part of NVIDIA's fight. Now, whether Nintendo cares about that or not, I don't know. But if they can get that cheap and they can get that bullet point and everyone between Nintendo and NVIDIA starts hugging, then that's good news for everybody on that side. So I think about that a lot. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but it's definitely in the clouds.
It does feel like that would be a no-brainer. Like that just would be the move to make right now, you know? It also doesn't feel like something Nintendo would ever want to talk about either, though. You know, they would.
I feel like a lot of the things Nintendo does, they don't like to talk about until right before it's ready to go. I want a Vitality Sensor 2.0. I want to stick my finger in my Switch and have it read my heart rate.
I was going to make a Vitality Sensor joke, and you beat me to it.
I saw that Vitality Sensor look in your eye.
Damn it.
Hey, I can just go grab my Ring Fit Adventure guy right now and just do some workouts while we make those jokes. I'm in. I'm ready. Let's go.
Jonathan McFowle says, he wants us all to take a break and show off our respective collections. And holy crow, are we the nerd army right now? When you look at our backgrounds right now, we are representing our geekiness in a big way.
That's why we're here, Vic.
I'll just get out of the frame. There you go.
We'll let the stuff talk for us. Yeah, there you go. What they don't know is that we're all set up in individual Best Buys. Right.
There's actually, if you go to Kotaku right now, there's this incredible video 20 years ago of someone just walking through a Toys R Us, I believe in New York City, right before Thanksgiving, and just filming what it looked like inside of Toys R Us. And I look at it, and there's a little part of me that's like, yeah, that looks so boring. And then I remember, oh, right, this doesn't really exist very much anymore. I certainly don't go shopping around other people looking for a giant wall of Barbies, let alone the entire Genesis versus Super Nintendo versus TurboGrafx 16 kiosk. That was an era, because boy, did they all want our money.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms
we still
of
have
my
Toys R
wall,
Us going in Canada, by the way.
Right. Well,
blasphemous.
Quit the Canada bragging. You've got the healthcare and the Toys R Us. We get it, Vic.
Sorry.
We got a new president.
You guys are on the way back. It's all good. It's all good. One day you'll get Toys R Us again. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit.
United States of America.
Let's talk a little bit about the some of the rumors, because there's been some data mining that there is going to be a 4K Switch.
Yeah.
But the speculation is that it's going to be on the dock. It wouldn't be in the handheld device part of it. Do you guys think that would be the way that Nintendo would do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll try not to steamroll too much with this feeling, but it makes the most sense because the Switch Lite is still doing well.
Yeah.
Because that portable use, they've got the data on who uses what and how.
Sure.
And so they're interested in competing. They still want to be in as many living rooms as possible. But the other thing is they are already making most of their money from existing software. Now, obviously, Animal Crossing blew up last year, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe continues being at the top, continues selling more every year. They never have to mark it down as a greatest hits.
I just quoted
the
the Japanese numbers. They sold 87% of all consoles in Japan last year. And they owned, I think, 6 out of 10 or more of the top 10 software titles, and most of them were legacy titles. Mario Kart 8, it's still. I think it vies for not only the best racing game of the last decade in a lot of categories, but it's one of the best games ever published. Like it's just so crazy fun to go back to it, and that's one of those example games where it's like, Nintendo doesn't have to do anything. I mean, that still looks like magic. It's a few years old, but it still looks like you're racing around with cartoons. It's
and as a result, you can take those kinds of images and not worry about what resolution they're at. However, but now 4K is just the TV standard. Where pretty much everywhere in the world, you're going to get 4K TVs for the same price as 1080p. Yeah. And it's hard at this point to sell the TV side of it. And they want to sell the TV set because they want to own the living room. They want you to use TV streaming apps on their devices. They want you to be locked in Nintendo, buying games on the eShop instead of other places. Right. So push is going to come to shove for them to say, you know what, we need to get back in the living room to sell more of the software, because otherwise PSN and Xbox Live are going to pick up those sort of indie game sales and other things for people to play together in the living room. So that 4K bump on a TV makes sense in a way that the portable play does not necessarily.
And honestly, I think that the Switch has probably taken a hit in the last year in terms of, it didn't help that there weren't tons of huge games. Like Animal Crossing was there, and Age of Calamity was really fun as well. But it wasn't epic, It wasn't like the epic year that the Switch has had in previous years.
Wait, are you saying Pikmin 3 Ultimate Edition didn't just blow your mind as Game of the Year? Come on.
It did blow my mind, but I don't know if that's it never has been a game for everyone. And I think that Nintendo had one of those kinds of years combined with, I found myself playing the Switch a little bit less because I was tethered to the house, I would play the Switch. That would be probably the system I would play the most because of all the traveling that I do. But last year I didn't do any traveling, and I was on PlayStation and Xbox more. How about you guys?
I was playing my PSP Go.
Were you?
I'm still holding on hope. Still
PSP is not life.
Anytime a new game is launched, I bug the developers for when it's coming to Vita. I enjoy tweeting at them daily. But in all seriousness, I've been playing mostly the Switch, and then those mini consoles like the SNES Mini, the Genesis Mini, TurboGrafx Mini. I've been playing lots of games that I used to play as a kid because I just didn't have the mental capacity for something new most of the time. Like I could play this new game, or screw it, I could just go play R-Type again. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
I would just say that the Switch, it's not us that's necessarily the quotient for who's playing games. It's the giant market. Animal Crossing absolutely cracked an egg open at the perfect time during a terrible era. Mm-hmm. People were just ready to go, you know what? I do want to decorate a virtual town and socialize in it with people in a terrible online interface, because that's the best I'm going to do right now. Totally. And that opened the doors up for other sorts of gameplay. I mean, whether it's Mario Kart or Crash Team Racing, those are both different nostalgic racing options that were both out there. All kinds of ways to play Nintendo and Super Nintendo games on the Switch Online service, because you can't buy an NES or SNES Classic anymore. So that's the way you do it. Yeah. There's all these different ways where they can tap in and sell out Nintendo Switch hardware. And they were doing that. It was very difficult to buy a Switch for a lot of 2020. So that also probably, the reason I even talk about motherboard kind of creation is because that would be what forces the issue. The market is not forcing Nintendo to make a new Switch. Nobody is saying that people are tired of the Switch because they keep selling them. It's so, but there
and
is
if it's
that
a
sort
new
of sense.
machine, and honestly, I want to throw this out to you guys. Would you recommend to someone asking you, should they buy a Switch right now? Would you say yes, or would you say hold off? Shaun?
I would say it depends on what kinds of games you like, right? So I'd ask them like, what are you looking to play, and then give them yes or no. But I would probably lean toward yes. Like if they've already got, well, likely they don't have a PS5 or the new Xbox, but I would recommend a Switch to people, especially if they're not like hardcore into like needing to play the biggest titles, etc. So.
And that's probably the person. That is that person at this point, isn't it? Somebody that's held off all of this time, hasn't picked up the Switch. They aren't thinking about the newest tech and the brand new stuff out there. Even if the launch of a better machine is imminent, the Switch is still fantastic for that person.
But if they've waited this long, I mean, like, you can wait for the new one and then pick up the old one. If it might be impossible to get a new one if they do announce one.
Or I'll just be like, if you waited this long for a Switch, have you heard of the Wii U? I've got one to sell.
Oh, don't get rid of your Wii U. That's such a good nostalgia machine if you jailbreak it, but that's a whole other conversation. But I will say this. If someone's asked me, hey, I'm not like looking for the cutting edge games, but I want to get back into it and I've got this certain amount of money, I would say, how do you feel about Xbox Game Pass? Because there's this Xbox Series S, and that has a really interesting proposition for you in the living room. Mm-hmm. Like that is actually right there is a neck and neck option for that person who's not trying to go cutting edge. And that's becoming a little bit closer because the more people I talk to, the more they're like, Game Pass, for how much money I spend, and I can just throw that in the living room and my kids never have to buy a game because there's, and once they turn at least 15, maybe I'll let them open up the Yakuza side of it. Like there's so much in Game Pass, and Nintendo's never going to come close to matching that, period. So that is a really important consideration.
Mostly because they don't need to though, right, Sam? I mean, they've set up a whole... Their industry is different from the rest of the video game industry.
Right. And Microsoft has had to compete accordingly. And that was the big bully move on their part to say, Game Pass, it is ridiculous. You're getting more games every month than you're losing. Yeah. And that to me is a really important market factor that could play out interestingly in the next year if they get their supply issues together. We'll have to wait and see. But just to the answer to that question, it's like, it's not that I'd say you need to wait for a Switch HD as much as, well, what do you really want in the living room? And the Series S, I think, has more legs than we've given it credit, especially when we talk about games that aren't, Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. They don't have to be the most cutting edge. People just want a box to play Overcooked with their family. Right. And that can be it.
Yes. Still, I think maybe not quite as accessible and family friendly as the Switch is for a lot of folks, though. I think the Switch is... it works for lifers like us that want to dive into all of the software, but it also works for first-timers, I think, pretty effectively. I think that the Xbox ecosystem is definitely getting better and more inclusive and more value-packed. But it's still like you have to have an online account and you've got to, give over your credit card to have access to all of this stuff, which we're all getting used to for sure. But I just think I don't think my 8-year-old would sort of gravitate towards the Xbox and turn it on and start grooving on that before she would play with the Nintendo Switch, which she plays all the time.
There's kind of like this implied accessibility to Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Like they just seem like they've curated this family-friendly approach. Not that all of their games are family-friendly, but it's just the brand that you think of. It's like, kids are going to want to play Nintendo, but like not necessarily the case. I think it's just they've kind of been pigeonholed by a lot of people, and maybe they like that. Like it's
That's their
obviously
core,
doing,
man. That
it's
is
doing
their
good for
core,
them.
and it kind of it really brings up the question why they would even bother to try to go with next gen now. I think that we all see the logic in making that move, and there's a predictability in that move. But even if we go back to the 3DS iterations and the DS iterations, they were so marginal. They were so incremental.
We've added a thumb nub up at the
Yeah.
top. Great. Okay, I need a new one.
But
I don't appreciate you talking crap about the great thumb nub, sir. How else am I going to play Monster Hunter Generations 2XI Chronicles?
look at all this. I got all of these.
And honestly, there wasn't software that really took advantage of those, because that's the other sort of can of worms that they open up, right? If they add to the category, suddenly they're going to have software that may take advantage of it, or it has to be playable on legacy Switch hardware. And what does that mean for development? And is it going to be worth that extra trouble? What do you
I
guys
want a
think
new
about
Trident controller. Give me that third. Just why is this nub? Why is this one?
that is
Oh
a
my
tough-
goodness, did you just suggest the N64 Switch with a third UFO nub? Boom. You and I are about to get rich. But I will say this, the Nintendo Switch, honestly, is Nintendo's iPhone from here on out. We are
Right.
going to see the Switch as their thing for a while,
Right.
until we start plugging microchips into our brains or whatever, augmented reality
Agreed.
glasses or blah, blah, blah. Until then, it will continue to be the Switch. And thankfully, we've reached a processing point where honestly, you can just have that base Tegra framework that says, here's what you can do to get to at least 30 frames a second and low resolution. And then you just use more processing to crank that up, as opposed to we're switching from PowerPC to a different architecture or things like that. That to me is going to be the saving grace of this. And the thing that, like I brought it before, those jailbroken, hyped up versions of existing Switch games where you're cranking up the resolution or the LOD pop-in kind of stuff. Like there's ways where you can do cross-generational and it'll work. And the Nintendo first-party stuff is already working on a primary color, simple texture kind of way to scale accordingly. Because again, we're buying Wii U games in 2021. We've got Mario coming in a few weeks, and it's just going to be a Wii U port, and we're all going to love it.
Yeah. I was playing Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze the other day.
Funky mode.
It's so good. It's
New
still
funky mode.
incredible on the Switch. Yes.
I want a new Donkey Konga. Give me Kongas I can snap on the side of my Wii or my Switch.
They've got the what's the one? They've got the drumming game.
Oh yeah,
Taiko or something like that.
Taiko
yeah,
drums?
the Taiko one. That's
Yes,
out there,
yeah.
and it's so good to air Joy-Con. It's really great.
But I want drums. Like instead of the Joy-Cons, I want the drums I snap into the Switch, and then you're just like beating the hell out of your Switch.
I want this damn pandemic to be over because I want to see you play that game on a plane with
I'll bring it. It's on.
Yeah.
Just excuse me.
with your daughter beside you.
Are you taking the elbow space?
You also have the claps in that game too.
Oh, yeah.
That would be amazing.
Just on a plane.
I was so
Oh,
I remember being so excited for Jungle Beat and being like, oh, you can control it with bongos, and then like I played 3 levels and like I'm fucking tired.
Yeah. This is a
Like
workout.
that's it.
Tore a body. Yeah.
So what would you guys, what do you want from a Switch upgrade? Sam, what would you like for Nintendo to do? Do you want it to be something that focuses on portability as well as something that's docked, or do you want it to just be a console so it's like a totally separate part of the family? What do you want?
If we're going with crazy wish lists that don't predict what's realistically going to happen, then give me some more ergonomic Joy-Cons that are for grown-up hands, so I don't have to buy those Nyko things that don't actually work when they're detached.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, I want HDR support for when it's plugged into a TV. I want games that can simply HDR metadata costs nothing in terms of processing, and it looks amazing. I just did the Resident Evil 8 Maiden demo on my OLED, and woo, if you guys haven't done that yet, it is a real treat in terms of HDR metadata. That just looks so good, and it costs nothing. So please give us that.
Yep.
But primarily,
couldn't they do that upgrade to existing Switch architecture?
No, because of the HDMI setup that they've
right,
got.
yes,
It won't.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't. I mean, maybe, but I don't see that happening. But
Okay.
I would like HDR because that's such a cheap thing to add, and it looks really cool. And all TVs tend to have it. So
Right.
there's that side of it. But ultimately, I want home upscaling. I want to be able to say the game's good enough on the go, and also good at home. I'm tired of this thing where it's like, well, it's going to be good portable. Why would I plug that into my TV? And I
Yeah.
think more and more and more people have at least a PlayStation 4. So why would you play the home version of a non-Nintendo game on the Switch if it's going to be that much better on PlayStation 4, which is cheap now that there's other stuff, let alone other systems. So give me that one way or another, something 4K legitimate. Doesn't have to be the best. DLSS, again, is a way to that, but just
Yeah.
a way so that I can stay in the Switch ecosystem instead of like going, well, which system am I getting it for?
And there's no way that they could go to 60 frames per second consistently without also hitting a higher resolution as well. Like the processor would put both of that.
I mean, there's no reason to do one without the other. There's
Right.
both of those are going to be the case in terms of what you're doing, what you're getting in those little milliseconds per frame. Yeah, I would expect both. And either way, DLSS would help so that you could focus on the speed and then because Nintendo has always been good about frame rate. There's
Yes.
some exceptions, but generally
Their stuff is
like
pro.
Smash Bros, for example, has
Yes.
always cared about frame rate. So it's not like we're a bunch of super nerds obsessing over something stupid. They care too. So that's good.
But we are
Absolutely.
super nerds.
And we are obsessing over something somewhat silly.
It's
but
not like we're just that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we have more layers than that.
Yeah.
Sean, what would you like out of this hypothetical sequel to the Nintendo Switch?
Well, obviously, more power would be amazing. And something that they could actually do to the Switch now is reorganize that damn eShop so that like you could actually find things, or there's like curated collections or something.
And it's so
like,
slow too, right?
Yeah,
like it
it's
just
slow.
loads
Like-
so slowly.
and that's probably because the Switch isn't powerful enough to load it.
Yeah.
Like-
So
But
power.
yeah, just I want power. I would like more comfortable Joy-Cons as well. Although I tend to play, I've got a Switch Lite and like it is what it is. You can't really attach anything to that. But
Right.
I do favor playing with the Pro controller, and yeah, I guess more original titles. You know, we're seeing lots of ports. Understandably so, lots of stuff that was on the Wii U that was forgotten and didn't reach the audience it deserved. But you know, it just when you go through the shop, you see a lot of titles that have existed for years on other platforms, and although it's convenient to have it all on the Switch, I'd like to see more new stuff, and that's up to other developers, not just Nintendo.
Right. And they're probably, you know, hamstrung a bit because the Switch is a different power skew, and they've got developers that are trying to hit different targets, and they've got their own ambitions, and there is this kind of looking down your nose a little bit when you're scaling it all down there. Like I don't think people are out there beating their chest about they worked on the Doom Eternal port for Nintendo Switch. As good a job as they were able to do, that's not the high profile sort of, you know, position in the game industry right now. Foobs, what would you like to see out of a new Nintendo Switch?
I would love to see Nintendo just completely switch it up. Just go back to cartridges. Just like,
So just-
how much power can we pump out of a cartridge nowadays? Let's find out. I mean, they're already putting the Switch games. You can download them where you get this little cartridge.
Yeah.
But I want to just go full on, or at least make this like the next Switch game look like old school Nintendo cartridges. That's just a simple aesthetic thing.
Would you
wise.
at least want it covered in the same toxic layer of bad tasting goo? Would you want that to be worse, or maybe taste like tricks? Like, where's your angle on that?
See, I don't know.
Think about the kid that's coming.
I haven't
Wait, hold
ever.
on. You haven't licked a Nintendo Switch cartridge?
No.
Go
What?
get one. We'll wait.
Do it.
Wait,
Yeah,
this
do
could
it
be a
now.
world premiere.
Nope.
Oh, it tastes great. It tastes like dreams.
You're gonna
Those are
want them
dreams
to
I do
taste-
not want.
You're gonna want them to taste awful. You do not want your kid getting in there. And
Nope, my kid's getting the downloadable version only. You are not seeing a little no. No, again, I would like to see better control Joy-Cons. I'd like to see. I mean, I have these giant man hands, so holding the Joy-Con buttons, especially if you're trying to play multiplayer. I was trying to play with snipper clips with my wife once, and it was just.
Yeah,
do you guys use the Joy-Con quite a bit?
Like The ones that are on the Switch?
Yeah,
Or-
like I mean, I did one when I first got it, but it became a portable system for me, and I didn't take the Switch, the Joy-Con off the Switch. I didn't generally. If I put it on an airplane table, I would have my Pro controller with me. I was one of those guys, so I'd take the Pro controller and I'd have the Joy-Con on there. I never really took them off and used them, and I still don't. I still don't really use them. Do you guys use them?
No, it's not a good experience. The only time I've taken them off to use them is to put it in the Ring Fit Adventure peripheral.
Right.
But like holding them, like even with those things that you can slide on so that they're
I don't even know where those are.
Yeah.
I lost those.
And like people
week
put them
one.
on backwards and like.
And yet it became such a primary focus of what Nintendo Switch was about when they launched it. It was the differentiator, I think, because we all understood portability and we all understood connecting it to the screen. This was the middle point. But
Yeah.
I honestly don't know how much. And Sam, you're correct. I mean, they're going to have that data. They're going to know how many people set it up like they showed it in the commercials at the basketball court, and everybody passed around Joy-Con.
Isn't that
and
how
played.
y'all play NBA 2K? Just, you get on the basketball court and all of your very tall friends are crowding around the 6.2-inch screen. Like, that's how I do it with all of my basketball pals.
I did like one Street Fighter thing with my buddy Johnny from Happy Console Gamer when we were waiting for a movie one time, but I cannot remember crowding around. But certainly people are using the Switch that way. But my question is, if you've got that, you've got this sort of transformer Switch, and then you've got the true portable Switch, isn't the next solution just to have the home base?
Never.
Like,
Never.
why bother?
Zero.
Why have something that is portable and at home?
Why not?
Because
Well-
if that was a priority, they would not have come out with the Switch Lite first. The Switch Lite, I think, was an absolute response to what they knew people were using it as. So that to me made really clear that a home-only Switch would not be valuable to them because they've already got it's got to be backwards compatible with that relatively weak and underclocked CPU GPU combo. So because that's a cornerstone, they're never going to let go of that convenience, and they're never going to let go of that sleek differentiator, because again, it is a differentiator. Like nobody else is making a thing like that. You're not playing games like this on the iPhone. The iPhone and Android still don't have a response to the Switch. Even if you take a Razer Kishi and do Project xCloud with Xbox on the cloud and all that, none of that compares to, even as annoying as the Joy-Cons can feel. That's still cool. It's still cool to be able to play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and have it just rip at 60 frames a second. So that is always going to be the case. But I do, as I'd said before, think that they have a reason to be good in the living room for whenever you plug it in. And maybe it's the second, like you have multiple Switches in the house, but the home only one, it's just a waste of the architecture that's already there.
Well, here. Let's play devil's advocate here. It would cut down on cost significantly, which is always something that Nintendo is thinking about. Cost to manufacture, cost of all the elements to put it together, but also cost back to the consumer. The processor upgrade could be substantial, and I think you're in a situation where you can sell all three of the Switches to the same person. You give
I could see a screenless Switch being sort of at the end, kind of like the new 3DS being sort of the end of line of that era. I could see a screenless Switch coming sort of near the end of that as like, well, you know what? How else can we squeeze money out of you? Here we go. But that would really be the peak for me, as opposed to the next move.
Because, and I totally would get that, but I also think about the Switch Lite and how that, if they do a better Switch, not only is it going to kill the appetite for the existing Switch, but presumably also the Switch Lite category as well.
Unless they refresh all of them simultaneously, who knows? Like, because again, we're kind of guessing here, but I don't see them building two separate motherboards. I see them finishing off the existing supply and then bumping up to the next one, just like they did when they got rid of the jailbreak. So like that to me is sort of the inevitability, is we're going to upgrade all the Switches.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw this out, and you guys can let me know if I'm crazy here. What if the next Switch is a Switch Lite that you can plug in, so you can have it as a television device, but it's mostly portable. You can't take the Joy-Con off, and there's a home unit. There's a separate home unit. That's
You're
more
crazy. Kidding, just
What are you
kidding.
smoking in that basement of yours, Victor?
Because
I don't
honestly,
think-
if you look at the Switch Lite as it exists today, it would be another notch of perfect if you could plug it in. Like, it's so freaking amazing as a platform, but if you could also plug it in and run it on
I
your
don't
television,
think that's a bad idea because they may have the data saying nobody's detaching the Joy-Cons anyway. So what the heck? Let's just do it. Like, that's not a bad prediction.
That update would be too incremental and annoying in the long run, and it's totally something Nintendo would do. Because it's like, it's such a small thing, and it's like, oh, I need to have it. And like a year and a half later, they announced the next one anyway.
Mike Williams was on our last podcast together, and he said that they don't have a Monster Hunter Switch package yet. And so his prediction was it's going to be tied to whatever the new Switch announcement is going to be. Because
They're just going to do a Monster Hunter Switch without the game, like this stupid Animal Crossing Switch that doesn't come with Animal Crossing.
No, I
What kind
don't.
of stupidness?
I think it will come with the game.
You bought the game though, didn't you?
Nope.
Well, I don't
In
buy it.
protest.
Now, but I will say this, what was hilarious was Mike said that, and then 2 days later, Nintendo announced a red and blue Nintendo Switch that be timed with Super Mario 3D World without any upgrades. It just made me laugh. I was just like, nope, that's not the Switch Pro. That's not the Switch Pro at all, Mike.
Not at all. What's great is the original Switch was red and blue already. It's like, but the dock's red now. I can spray paint the black dock from the old... Done.
But truthfully, we all wanted that the minute that we saw that image, right?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Don't need it.
It's not going to come with a game now. It's just, here you go. Damn it.
So the big question is, do they need to do this? Do they need to? Should they?
I mean, I think especially older gamers, people who have been gaming a while that have the new consoles that are interested in the new tech, obviously want them to do it. Because if they did it, it'd be like, yes, Nintendo, do the damn thing.
Yeah.
Just don't switch the discs. Don't switch the format. Don't like, we're going from discs to super small discs. You got regular size discs. Because like, okay, GameCube, the Wii, all right. Now we got cartridges again. Damn it. Just pick one. Stick to it. You know what the Xbox and the PlayStation do? CDs. It's been CDs for so long.
Yeah, it would be amazing if you could plug in some of the old carts. You're right, like the old DS and 3DS carts and the Game Boy carts into. That would be incredible.
If Nintendo wanted to do that with the Switch Pro, be like, hey, we put in slots where you can throw in your GBA games or throw in your DS. I mean, I don't know how you do DS, but at least GBA games are like, I mean, it's a little bit over the top and too far back for them. Probably they'll never do it
because they want to sell it again, but they should.
They'll also never do it because those software stacks are so vulnerable in terms of piracy. Zero chance.
Right.
Zero chance you'll ever see adapters for those. They would definitely love to resell you all of your DS and 3DS licenses, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
When you get the GBA Mini, the mini.
I'm just waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting for the WarioWare Twisted Mini. That's the platform I'm stoked about. Of course, I'm over here wishing the N64 Mini would ever happen, which if you look into it is just a different processing load that the ARM processors aren't great at. But to your question, Nintendo is going to make a better, more efficient, more powerful Switch. Period. It's going to happen because they're not going to make a different console. They're continuing with Switch. And just by how manufacturing works, it's just going to happen. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen this year. It should happen this year just in terms of timing and manufacturing. But the pandemic is the one question mark that throws everything else into a loop. But it's going to happen. But they don't need to. They don't wait another year.
No,
they
don't
focus
need to.
on. They can focus on putting out some new games. Give me some new Metroid. Let's go.
Well, I do wonder whether the slow drip of information has been a mix of pandemic slows down development and let's make sure that the Switch Pro is met with Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid Prime 4 footage that go pow. It's going to be cool on the old Switch, but holy cow, is going to be awesome on the new one. Like, I do strongly believe that there is something to be said about, well, we haven't shown it already, so let's just make it all one big super package that blows 4K hungry players away. Like, that's how I see it happening.
What do we know is coming to the Switch this year? We've got Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, which looks incredibly impressive, even though it's
new
something
Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Snap, yeah. What any other big titles that we know for sure are coming? That's it.
From
Monster
Nintendo,
Hunter-
that's it. From
Monster
Nintendo,
Hunter Rise.
Because well, right, Monster Hunter Rise, but in terms of first party Nintendo, everything else is a question mark because we haven't seen any firm confirmation of Breath of the Wild 2 this year. It's assumed, but who knows?
Bayonetta 3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bayonetta 3, yeah.
No More Heroes 3 is supposed to come out this year too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I thought there were no more heroes.
I think
Well,
if
it's
like Final
Bravely
Fantasy.
Default 2, thank you, Jeff Love. I think if they are, I think if they are making a new Switch, I mean, they're going to make a new Switch. I think the new Switch is going to be tied to Breath 2. I mean, I think that's it's really easy to draw that connection, you know, and it's going to be a backwards compatible on current Switch hardware, just like it was on the Wii U. And we're going to see an appreciable benefit by going forward with this.
And if you want to know what that's going to look like, and you've got a decent computer, CEMU, you can easily rip a Wii U disc in order to have the Wii U version of Breath of the Wild 1 run on your PC on that emulator with a 60 frames per second patch and with a LOD push out patch. It's unbelievable. That's what I talked about this last time I was on the show, that there was part of my Christmas vacation was finally doing it that way because all of the patches are pretty put together. It's unbelievable. And I would really like a 60 frames Breath of the Wild 2. That would be dope.
That would be incredible.
You know what I like to see on the Switch? Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, it's been out long enough. Let's just go ahead and throw it on the Switch.
You know what I'd
it's
like to
on
see on
everything
you know what I'd like to see on Switch Pro? A Skyrim port. That would be really great.
They'll do
Fallout
that.
3, guys. Let's go back. Let's get Liam Neeson back in the mix. Fallout 3.
Well, what happens with all of the existing software out there? What happens with Skyrim for Switch? Do the developers do what they've been doing with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series and do these free upgrades, or is it a you got to buy it again kind of thing?
Well, it's not going to be buy it again. It's going to be a matter of whether the studios go back. I mean, you can look at Bloodborne and how it never got a PlayStation 4 Pro patch as an example of the likely outcome from a lot of publishers of not going back and touching up software. And the hope is that these firmware kind of code leaks are a hint that this is already being easily implemented. The dream is that this is simple, that this is just a matter of you've got the spec and you hit a button and boom, instant upgrade at the very least for older software. That is the great, great dream. And that's why I'm glad we're talking about it now, because the easier this is for developers, the more likely Nintendo's going to go great. Like that, the easier it is, the more likely we're all going to spend the money and play with more fun stuff.
Well, that was a big part of the selling point for the Switch originally. I mean, they really went out to the development community and a lot of indie developers, and they made it very easy to get games running on the platform right from the beginning. That was a big part of their messaging. And Nintendo, we know we can count on them to surprise us, but it would be really extremely foolish for them to surprise us by coming out with something new and abandoning Switch. Even though there's an expectation that's kind of what we kind of know about Nintendo is they come out with something and they just like, this is us now, this is what we do, and you forget all of that stuff. But with Switch, it was such a massive success, it would just be so foolish for them to just skip it and move on to something totally brand new.
Yeah, I don't see them abandoning. I see it being like Switch and Switch 2 will coincide, Switch 2 and Switch 3 will coincide, that sort of thing. Because again, we're past the era where it's like, no, you have to get you. I'm old enough to where, Mom, I need a Super Nintendo. What? You've already got a Nintendo. You don't need another Nintendo. Like, those days are done. Games continue to live from system to system, even though Nintendo makes you rebuy licenses for the most part. So the idea of Switch being more stable than any other Nintendo generation is an optimistic statement on my part.
I think it is, though. I think that there is something. I think you hit the nail on the head with it being the iPhone for Nintendo for the next little while. You know, like there, in a way, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's such a successful platform. And I'm sure you guys share some similar thoughts with this. It's an amalgamation of all eras of Nintendo. Nintendo's done a pretty good job at being backwards compatible as it's gone along, and certainly there's more work that can be done with the Switch. But it does kind of represent this because there's so much retro stuff. There's so many collections. I'm playing the Turrican collection on Switch right now. There's so much, history also in this platform. that there is a sense of permanence with it. It almost represents that idea of you got the Nintendo, you know? So if they can stay with this and improve, I want faster internet. And one of the things that they're testing right now is all the streaming software, like Hitman 3 you can play on the Nintendo Switch. Have you checked that out, Sam?
No, because I'd already tested the version of that with, it was, I want to say, an Assassin's Creed game, where that was a Japan exclusive way to play one of the Assassin's Creed games. I think it was Odyssey, on the Switch through the cloud. So it's, I mean, it's basically like Stadia. It works, but because Nintendo doesn't, I don't have the Ethernet adapter for my Switch. I'm not a pro Smash player, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's you know, it's cloud and it's fine. It's not as good as Stadia or GeForce Now or Project X Cloud, but it's still good. But
you know, still play it, yeah.
But it would be nice if they had a Switch Pro dock that just had an Ethernet connection in by default. Please. That's part of my wish list. I forgot to add that.
A fast one too, right? Like a Wi-Fi, like super fast. I mean, that's one of the.
No, I mean, I want hardwired Ethernet. I want to be able to play a fighting game on the Switch.
Yeah.
Like Guilty Gear Strive. If that was on the Switch Pro with guaranteed Ethernet, so I know that there was some guarantee of some decent code, especially since there seem to be on the rollback side of things. That's a whole. Sorry, I'm going down a whole different path.
Do you think that they need do they need an SSD drive on a new Switch, or can they continue going? I mean,
they already do. They don't. They're not going to go up to like an M2 speed drive. That's not going to happen.
No,
because it's so cost inefficient. Like that. Yeah, I don't see that being the case because they've already got solid state, and you're already working with SD cards.
Yeah,
like it's so like I can already get, you know. The game sizes are already shrunken down in that weird compression way. I mean, goodness, that's the other thing about Switch is that all three files compressed, so all the audio is super tinny, so it can fit on an SD card. And that's not going to change.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We don't really come to Nintendo these days for. Back in the Super Nintendo, it had some incredible audio architecture, but since then, it's been eclipsed by the other guys out there. Yeah. So I guess the last kind of big prediction that we can have is it this year? And
yep.
And
April.
When is it coming?
It's coming out for my birthday.
April for Foobs' birthday.
So it's gonna be a birthday present from Nintendo.
April
I'm gonna
20th,
get Donkey
right?
Kong on the Switch.
420.
420. It's going down, guys. Nintendo's getting high with excitement.
What do you think, Shaun?
I think it'll be November.
It'll be a November release with new Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, I would say probably.
It's crazy we don't know anything beyond Pokemon. Isn't that nuts? Like, we don't know anything that's coming out this year.
Maybe they're not going to do anything. They're just going to be ballers like that. Like,
They're gonna. Have you guys played Animal Crossing?
what?
That's going to be their marketing for the whole year.
Give me my new Splatoon.
Sam, when do you think, bro?
I think my prediction is we're going to hear in either June or July that shipments of the existing Nintendo Switch are going to stop. That'll be the first hint that something's going to come, that they're going to be like, oh, all of a sudden they are no longer producing that original Switch. Why is that the case? And it's going to fall from there. And so I do think September, October, November, I think it'll be the fall.
They're going to stop producing the original. That's a huge prediction. So
once you do one, you don't need to, one of the models will be stopped. Like maybe the original Switch will stop and it'll be like, it'll be some sort of weird leak from some German retailer.
Yeah.
I'm coming for you, Germany.
It could be, but wasn't Walmart Canada leaking everything for a long time? It could be Walmart Canada.
Wait, is that your adult entertainment name, Walmart Canada?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes. So you think that they're going to stop? I feel like that would be an amazing opportunity for them to knock $100 off and have these different categories. I think Peter Kokazar was talking about giving consumers more ways in, more buying options out there.
The catch being that they're already selling out with all the options they have between the Switch Lite and the current Switch. The pace is insane. The demand
you're so right, because not only do they have to make this thing, but they know the demand is crazy because they can't keep up with what they currently have, which is a 4-year-old machine. So they not only have to make it, they have to make a lot of it because they know people are going to go freaking nuts for it. And yes, why would they split their manufacturing lines and make 2 SKUs? You're absolutely correct, Sam.
And so that's also why I think we're going to wait until later in the year, because I think they want to launch with a gazillion switches. I think they want that feel. Maybe the dream is we're back to normal by November. People are going to go into stores excited that they can shop again, and you can't find a PlayStation 5 anywhere, but there's going to be a bazillion Switch Pros. Like that, I don't think that's a small part of their dreams.
And we'll get the next iteration of Ice Climber. Come on! A guy can train. Let's just bring back a franchise that's like, what? Ice Climber? That's where we're going?
Clue Land, man. Let's go big. Come on.
Yes.
Mr. Mass Produced 201 says, I don't think it's coming this year.
Rob Bubble 3?
Rob German says, just joined. What's this about? A new Switch? Yes, that's what we've been talking about.
Here it is, guys. Here it is. Boom.
Sure, upgraded hardware, but the Switch will remain for a long time. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. This is Nintendo's. We don't want to call it their iPhone, but this is their line for a long time. It just makes a tremendous amount of sense that
they're gonna have FaceTime. They're gonna have a front-facing camera.
We all have friends at Nintendo. I remember the nervousness when they were revealing the Switch for the first time. Not the first commercial that went out, but when they were physically putting it in people's hands. There was a lot of everybody kind of, all the reps and the PR folks just sort of standing back, observing and really questioning, is this going to work? Because I think that there was this big question mark. Was this actually going to be a successful platform?
Well, you have to remember the Wii U was what they thought this was going to be. They thought the Wii U was it because they saw that people wanted touchscreens and that they wanted a dual screen experience because everyone was just thinking, oh, everyone's got a smartphone in their hands. So let's do like a thing where you've got the screen on the couch and the screen on the TV. And they didn't understand that, no, we just want the one screen for the entertainment while we're looking at our phone. Like the split screen insanity of the early teens. Like, rest in peace forever. Like, clearly that was not the case. And so I think Nintendo, somebody was convinced that the split screen thing was real. It never was real, but the idea that they had was right. And that was like, because that was Iwata, God rest his soul, knew that they were onto something with the Wii U concept and the Switch being the transition from that. And they were right. They were right in terms of going, we can unify our constant development split between portable and home. Let's stop that. Let's stop doing the thing where Mario and Luigi have an RPG you can only play here and Super Mario 3D games are only here. Let's just get it all together in the same house and make all of the money as a result. And NVIDIA made that happen. They were looking for a hardware partner for so long that could nail that. And NVIDIA was the one that made their dreams come true. And nobody else has come close in terms of a chip.
Yeah, and AMD is partnered with the other guys. But the other thing that they did with the Switch is that they went hard after phones as well. They went hard after the phone gamers out there, and they made it totally cool for people to always pack around their Switch with them in addition to their phone, and then make the choice to play on a Switch in a portable kind of situation as opposed to playing on their phone. And that was a big part of their marketing and a big part of their strategy. And also the proof was out in the wild whenever we were on planes. Remember planes? Well, whenever we were on planes, people would be switching it up, And it is going to be interesting to see what all of this learning of this last year, all of these manufacturing issues, all of these rampant, crazy, passionate consumers have trained Nintendo to kind of prepare for this next iteration, all of those lessons to see what they come out with next, because there's a lot that's fantastic about the Switch, but there's also a lot of ways, and we talked about a bunch of them, but there's lots of ways that they can improve hardware-wise, not just power, but like ergonomically and quality of life.
Chat, I don't need to use my phone for. Can we get built-in... some sort of built-in technology to where I can play a game if I happen to be playing online on the Switch.
Totally.
Talking to the person through the system itself and not just have my phone out.
100% that needs to be a part of the next iteration.
They should also bring a Street Pass back or some sort of functionality like that.
Yep.
Yeah. A little green dot goes up. Ooh, I passed someone. What do they have for me?
Faster internet for sure. And like better resolution and better frame rates and even tighter integration with Lots of their partners. Also, the Nintendo Switch Online stuff with the NES and the Super Nintendo, those libraries could be fleshed out. They should be throwing some Game Boy stuff up there. They should be getting into the N64. And honestly, if they start to deliver on some of those benefits and improvements, I think they can charge more for Nintendo Switch Online. I don't think they can do that, though, if you have to use a phone to chat. I think you're absolutely correct, Foobs. It's insane that you have to use a phone to chat.
But I mean, Nintendo's always been super obsessed with one ecosystem more than any of the others, which is you're a family, you get one system, and every single person in the house can grab the games and understand them immediately and share them together. And even Pikmin, as esoteric as that is, still fulfills that, let alone Mario Odyssey or Mario 3D World or Breath of the Wild or all of these things that are Nintendo. Arms is one of those that's goofy, but it just you just get people together with the Joy-Cons and you do all that and it works. And that is the ecosystem that they care about the most. And we do, as obsessive nerds, wish they got some of the other ones together, especially in a connected world where we're playing with our friends online. They dropped the ball with that enough, but also Animal Crossing got enough right where we could still at least do some stuff together with friends and do it in a way where our parent can hand it to a kid and not be terrified. That's a big deal. They got that. I did not hear a single horror story from the past 12 months about some kid having something terrible happen because of Animal Crossing.
Excellent
point.
point.
A game as kid friendly and connected as that is, that's kind of a huge silent truth. Good job, Nintendo. We like to make fun of Nintendo for being way too handholdy with families, but they nailed that. So that's the thing that matters, and that's the reason they keep selling, and their Japanese stockholders keep being happy, and on and on and on. But also, I think everyone should get the cool power-up band.
Oh yes, show it off, buddy. This is from Tokyo Disneyland.
The theme park that was supposed to open this month and now never will. This is my Nintendo Toad slap bracelet.
It's so cool. And it's not Tokyo. Someone corrected me. It's in Osaka.
Osaka. I apologize.
Yeah.
That's for... There was an Ars Technica reader who sent me this because he got to go to a special preview before Japan's coronavirus number spiked and they shut it down for the foreseeable future. There's an awesome NFC amiibo chip in here. It works as a Toad toy. And there's one for Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, and Yoshi, and they all double as those amiibo toys on the Super Mario line.
Sam, did you want to make the statement to everybody that's on the chat that you're going to send one of those personally to every person that's tuned in right now?
No, I don't. I'm not Canadian. That's not my form of generosity. Mine is bragging and showing off.
No, it's incredible.
I'm not Canadian. Me neither. Damn it! Where's my stat bracelet?
Oh man. All right, so you're thinking November, you're thinking April for your birthday.
That's right.
I think we're getting it this summer, and I think we're going to hear about it next month.
At E3. Remember that?
I think we're going to hear about it next month. I think that would be... we're all dreaming right now, but I think it's coming, and we're going to hear some stuff very soon.
The guy saying E3 is the biggest dreamer of them all.
Today's news was all about all of the movies, the poor movie industry. Holy crap, the whole idea of getting people together to go and watch things right now. All of the movie theaters are just we're doomed, but
That's
all
scary.
the movies are getting delayed again. I put a whole video feature about all the stuff I'm looking forward to this year, just like I did last year. All wrong. It's all
just
garbage.
Watch Bill and Ted 3 again. You'll be good.
I actually enjoyed that silly movie. It was pretty fun.
Oh, that's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are awesome. Let's do this again. I'll pick another topic and we'll all
like I say every time, I got nowhere to go.
Well, thank you for being here, you guys. You guys are fantastic. Thank you. That's Jose and Shaun and Sam. Thank you, guys. And thank you, everybody, for being on the chat. It's a little tough for me to bounce from the conversation with folks and also the chat, so bear with me on all of that. But definitely there will be a new live Vic's Basement very soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you soon. And until then, play forever.